Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one of the most shocking and game-changing developments in the Middle East defense theater. Reports are emerging that Russian President Vladimir Putin has officially deployed a squadron of MiG-29 fighter jets to Iran, in what analysts are calling a direct warning to Tel Aviv and its Western allies. This move is not just about aircraft, it's about shifting power dynamics, strategic warnings, and possibly the most serious escalation in the Middle East involving Russia since the Cold War. The MiG-29 Fulcrum is a fourth-generation multi-role fighter developed by the Soviet Union. While it's not Russia's most advanced aircraft today compared to the Su-35 or Su-57, the MiG-29 still remains a highly capable jet. It is fast, agile, and designed to challenge NATO standard fighters such as the American F-16 Fighting Falcon. For Iran, which has long struggled with sanctions and aging aircraft like the U.S. built F-14 Tomcats from the 1970s, the addition of Russian MiG-29 squadrons is a huge leap in air power. But more importantly, these jets are not just being sold or gifted. They are reportedly being deployed and potentially piloted with Russian assistance. This means Putin is signaling that Moscow is now militarily present inside Iran, something that drastically changes the balance of power in the Middle East. To understand the bigger picture, we must first look at how Russia and Iran have been strengthening ties over the last few years. In Syria, Russian and Iranian forces worked together to keep Bashar al-Assad in power. In Ukraine, Iran supplied Russia with Shahed drones, which have been used extensively on the battlefield. Now, the favor is being returned. Russia is providing advanced aircraft, missile defense systems, and possibly even nuclear cooperation. This is not just military cooperation. It's a strategic partnership against Western dominance in the Middle East. By placing MiG-29 squadrons in Iran, Putin is essentially creating a forward operating base right at the doorstep of Israel, Saudi Arabia, and American bases in the Gulf. So, what is the message for Tel Aviv? Israel has long viewed Iran as its greatest existential threat, especially due to Tehran's nuclear program. For years, Israeli officials have openly discussed potential airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. But with Russian MiG-29 stationed in Iran, that possibility becomes much more complicated. Imagine Israeli F-35 stealth fighters taking off to strike Iranian nuclear sites, only to be intercepted by Russian-piloted MiG-29. Such a scenario would mean direct combat between Israel and Russia, something Tel Aviv desperately wants to avoid. In essence, Putin's deployment is a deterrence move. It tells Israel, if you attack Iran, you will not just face Tehran, you will face Moscow as well. Israel's Air Force is among the best in the world. They operate advanced American F-35s, F-15s, and F-16s, combined with top-tier pilot training and battle experience. But Israel's biggest strength is the freedom to strike anywhere in the Middle East without fear of serious retaliation. They have hit Syrian targets, Hezbollah convoys, and even Iranian bases in Syria with relative impunity. Now, with Russia directly embedding itself into Iranian air defense, Israel's freedom of action is shrinking. Every mission over Syria or Iran could risk escalation with Russian forces. This is a nightmare scenario for Israeli planners because it ties their hands while Iran continues advancing toward nuclear capability. Washington is watching these developments with growing concern. The U.S. has thousands of troops in the Gulf, naval fleets in Bahrain, and air bases in Qatar. The arrival of Russian squadrons in Iran means that American forces are now operating in contested skies. U.S. aircraft would need to consider Russian presence before conducting operations in the region. NATO, already stretched thin in Eastern Europe due to the Ukraine war, now faces a potential second front in the Middle East. This could be Putin's strategy, to divide NATO's focus, forcing the alliance to juggle both European defense and Middle Eastern deterrence at the same time. From Tehran's perspective, this is nothing short of a strategic jackpot. For decades, Iran has lived under constant threat of Israeli or American airstrikes, but now with Russian fighter jets protecting its skies, Iran feels more emboldened. This could lead to more aggressive actions by Iran's proxies in Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iraq. It could also accelerate progress in its nuclear program, knowing that the risk of an Israeli strike is reduced. Iran may also increase its influence in the Gulf region, challenging Saudi Arabia and other U.S. aligned states. In short, Iran's deterrence capability has grown overnight. The Middle East has always been a fragile chessboard, but the Russian MiG-29 deployment changes the entire game. Israel versus Iran becomes riskier for Tel Aviv. U.S. versus Russia becomes a real possibility as the two powers face each other outside Ukraine. Saudi Arabia and Gulf states may move closer to Israel, accelerating secret defense cooperation. Turkey is watching carefully, since it shares interests with both Russia and Iran, but is also a NATO member. This development could accelerate a new military bloc system in the region. On one side, Russia, Iran, Syria, and potentially China as a distant backer. On the other, Israel, the U.S., NATO allies, and Gulf states. Let's talk about the possible scenarios if tensions escalate. First, an Israeli preemptive strike. Israel might still choose to strike Iran if intelligence shows that Tehran is close to building a nuclear weapon. This would almost certainly trigger Russian engagement and lead to a major regional war. Second, proxy escalation. Iran could use Hezbollah in Lebanon or militias in Syria and Iraq to test Israel's defenses, while Russian jets deter Israeli counterattacks. Third, a U.S.-Russia standoff. American aircraft could clash with Russian patrols over the Gulf or Iraq, sparking a dangerous incident similar to Cold War encounters. Fourth, nuclear brinkmanship. If Iran crosses the nuclear threshold, Israel could consider extreme options, and Russia's presence might only raise the stakes higher. Why is Putin doing this? It's not just about Iran, it's about sending a global message. To NATO, he is saying, I can challenge you outside Europe. To Israel, he is saying, your skies are no longer free. To the U.S., he is signaling, I can undermine your Middle East dominance at will. By opening another geopolitical front, Putin is showing that Russia is not isolated despite Western sanctions. Instead, it is building powerful partnerships that can distract and weaken the West. The deployment of Russian MiG-29 squadrons in Iran marks the start of a dangerous new era in Middle Eastern geopolitics. For Israel, it represents a strategic nightmare that could limit its ability to prevent Iran from going nuclear. For Iran, it is a shield that boosts confidence and expands regional influence. For Russia, it is a bold move to project power and directly challenge the West. And for the U.S., it is a serious complication in a region where American dominance was once unquestioned. As tensions rise, the world is watching closely. One wrong move, one mistaken air encounter, could spiral into a war involving Israel, Iran, Russia, and even NATO forces. This is not just about fighter jets, it's about the future balance of power in the Middle East and the possibility of global escalation.